Welcome to the midweek message from First Grapevine, a United Methodist Church. We're glad you've joined us. Please take a moment and let us know you are watching by registering on our church website or mobile app. We hope this encouraging word will be a blessing for the middle of your week.
Hello and welcome to the midweek message. As we are in this sermon series of the good news, we thought it'd be a good idea to highlight some of the good things that this church has been doing in spite of the pandemic that we have. And so today, I'm very blessed to have Deb Scheiwe and Sue Schultz here to discuss Feed Our Kids. And so Deb, we'll start with you because it's kind of starting point would be the big week. So for those that may not be familiar with that, can you kind of explain what that is?
I would love to. So for about 15 years now, our church has been involved with Feed Our Kids, which is a mission that we partner with various people in the community and with Grace. And so Feed Our Kids helps provide lunch to kids in the GCISD who are on the free or reduced lunch programs in the school year, so that in the summertime, various community organizations will provide lunch to that same population of kids at 6 sites around the Grapevine area, apartments and some of the trailer parks in the area. And so Big Week is something that really blossomed out of 1 year, our church going to one site and bringing, I think, about 75 lunches to one of the apartment complexes off of Mustang Drive. And then I think the next year we thought, oh gosh, we could probably do 2 sites. And then I remember the third spring sitting in Dr. Cindy Ryan's office, a former pastor of ours, and starting the conversation about maybe we should dream a little bigger. And that's where Big Week came. That's where Big Week really blossomed. And we thought, well, maybe we could just make lunch for all the kids in the community, all the sites for a week. And so that's how Big Week started.
And it is a big week. So how many kids are we averaging?
Well, we have done as many as 800 kids a day, so that's 4,000 lunches. And so some years a little bit more, some years a little bit less, but what is striking is even in the community where not everybody really realizes the need, the numbers have really continued to grow. And even this summer, where it obviously was a different kind of Big Week, really our numbers were very high, and we were still able to serve lots and lots of kids.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, so we have the big week, and then this church continues that program for the 3 weeks post Big Week. And Sue, that's at Shady Oak. So you want to talk a little bit about that program?
Sure. I still remember the conversation in Cindy Ryan's office where she suggested we do a giant month. It's like, oh, no. That's too hard. And she said, we do not stop at hard at this church. So we piggyback off of Big Week and serve Shady Oaks Trailer Park, which is our Grapevine Village, for an additional 3 weeks. And we feed about 100 kids a day over there.
That's awesome.
It's entirely different from Big Week in that the residents do most of the work. We partner with them, and we provide the resources, and they plan the menus. Leaders come forth, oftentimes young students, teenagers, and they determine what food we're going to have that day based on how many volunteers came to cook. And it was very, very different this year, but that's how that emerged.
Yeah, we keep talking about this history of like how things used to be and then this year, but I mean, I was blessed enough to witness both of these, and several times my family came and helped out at the Shady Oaks, and I noticed that Terry was one of the residents there. She was there, if I'm not mistaken, every day.
She was there every day. Her name is Terry. She is emerging as a leader. We had a leader, Coco, who actually helped us still. She organized the resident volunteers for us, even though she moved away. She's still part of our team. And yes, Terry emerged as a leader, and on the very last day, Terry said, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to serve my community.
Yeah.
That's the big takeaway from Feed Our Kids Giant Month.
Well, and that's what, so one thing that I think is really important is the church being in the community. And so if you look at Big Week, I mean, you're seeing the same kids, the same, at least under normal circumstances, the same volunteers are at the same site. And so they have a week to kind of establish a relationship and show that the church loves them. I mean, is that, I guess if they ask what the big reason you guys are involved in leadership and why you think the volunteers come out, what would you say would it be more of the relationship with the children?
It absolutely has to do with the relationship with the children. And so there are 6 sites during Big Week, and so we have so many people at our church that volunteer. I think one of the things that I love so much about Big Week is there are so many kids we serve, but there are also so many church members who will come out and volunteer and preparing, shopping, organizing the meals, going out to the sites, and then in other years, crafts and activities and reading and all of that. But the interesting thing is there are these people called site coordinators that commit to going out to the site and sort of supervising. Well, we have had the same site coordinators maybe for 15 years. So not only have I made a long-term commitment, but so have our church members. And those members have watched some of the kids in that community grow from babies in their mama's arms to high schoolers that now walk up to the table and they start helping to distribute the lunches to some of the other kids in their community. And so it's really this overwhelming opportunity to make relationships, just like Jesus made relationships. I mean, it's one of so many things our church gets to do where we make relationships. And I love both of it. I love being with all of our church members and working side by side or side by side 6 feet apart in the case of this summer. I love how we all work together, and then I love being out in the community and being able to just be a little piece of what we're supposed to be doing, right?
Right. And I noticed it over at Shady Oaks too. I mean, more often than not, Terry or you would know the kids by name and you say hi to them. And I think it's really great because this church very strongly believes in being in ministry with, not being in ministry to, right? And I think that the Feed Our Kids, especially the 3 weeks post Big Week, is very much an example of a partnership with the Grapevine Village, so that we as a church are serving together.
I think the first year, members of our church did it all. We cooked, we shopped, we planned, we fed, we cleaned up. These last few years, we've shopped and we are the designated leader there for Grace, representing our church. But we are not in charge. We are just part of the team.
Right, and I like that. And just to kind of close and to wrap this up, it's always a good answer of why we do this. And I think that one of the reasons I do what I do, you mentioned the number 4,000. That's kind of significant because if you look at the various stories of feeding in the Gospels, Jesus fed between 4,000 and 5,000 people in a miraculous thing. And that's my favorite story out of the Bible. And so if you look at that, all the ministry that Jesus did was with people. He was shoulder to shoulder, not 6 feet apart, but nonetheless, shoulder to shoulder, across the table, sharing meals and serving with his disciples and with those who followed him. And I think that that's just such an amazing bridge, this food that we're able to see. And what just amazing testimony to both of you and all of the volunteers. Not as many this year, but we know there were so many of you that were praying for us. And during this ministry, it was a resounding success. And of course, we all look forward to returning back to normal times. But I want to thank the two of you for being here today and also your leadership in these amazing ministries. And I want to thank all of you who had a hand, whether it was in shopping or calling restaurants. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't thank the restaurants and partners in the community that helped provide food this year since we weren't able to cook. But just thank you for being the church, because that is what this whole month was about, was being the church. And
can I give a quick shout out for
absolutely.
the restaurants? So VAST, our valuable after school time, we do something called Mealtime Boot Camp once a month. And that's basically teaching table manners. 3 local restaurants have served us over the years. So those are 3 of the 5 restaurants that helped us prepare food, or that prepared the food for us for Feed Our Kids. And let me tell you, they were so grateful to have that opportunity. Now, we did not ask for free food. This is not the year to ask a small business for free food. But they did give us discounted rate. They gave us delicious food that the kids absolutely loved. It was great variety. And it's, once again, it's relationships. The relationship that's been built between the restaurants and the church and the community. It was just win-win.
Yeah, and you're going to hear more about this in the Coming Jesus Project, of this idea of the beloved community. And this is just such an amazing example of that. All of the different hands and hearts and feet that went into making this success, that is indeed the beloved community. So thank you both for being here, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Welcome back. I'm Grant. I'm a pastor here. I'm very excited to get to introduce you to our next guest. This is Miriam Ward, longtime church member here at First Grapevine, involved in so many of our compassion ministries, ways that we care for people who are in need and show that we support them and that we're walking with them through life. But Miriam is here to talk specifically about her work with our blood drive that we host regularly. And even during the pandemic, we're now up to 2 in the pandemic world.
Yes, we are.
Well, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Miriam, how did you get involved in being a part of our blood drive here at the church?
It used to be a staff person who took care of the blood drive, and I think it was Cherry Rutledge, and I think she was feeling a little overwhelmed, and she asked me if I would be willing to help her out. Mm-hmm. So for a while, Cherry and I kind of did it together, and then Cherry left, so I continued to do it.
So that was about 4 years ago, right?
At least.
I was in the room, so that's how I know. So why are you, I want them to hear, those watching at home, why are you so motivated to help make sure the blood drive happens? What does that mean to you?
Oh, it means the world to me because in 2005, and a lot of people in our church know this, but I'll just give a short...
We've got a lot of new friends watching this.
Yes,
so yeah.
And for them and for anyone who hasn't heard, I will tell them about my story. In 2005, I was diagnosed with a blood disorder, a rare blood disorder, aplastic anemia, which means that my bone marrow had shut down, and my body was no longer producing red cells, which give you energy, white cells, which fight infection, and platelets, which keep you from bleeding if you get injured. And my numbers were all critically low, so I went to a hematologist and was given treatments. Before I started the treatments, my numbers were so low I had to have blood transfusions. So I was in the hospital all night getting blood transfusions, all day and all night, and platelets as well. Then I was treated for aplastic anemia, and they weren't sure that the treatments would work. They do for some people and they don't for others. Mine, I was fortunate enough that it did work for me. And then that lasted, I was in remission until 2009. In 2009, it ended, and so I had to go through treatments again. And once again, I had to go through blood transfusions immediately, and then all the time that I was going through the treatments. So people that donate are my heroes. They've saved my life, and I am so appreciative for their sacrifice.
So just to be extra clear, if it weren't for a blood transfusion,
I would not be here.
Wow. And you're not the only person in your family.
No, my daughter, when she was born, also had to have a blood transfusion. So she's adopted, so it's not an inherited thing, but she also had to receive.
That's just amazing.
It is.
I remember 4 years ago we were working on this project and on growing our blood drive participation, which has grown exponentially. And we've even met our goals during the pandemic. Even when people are afraid to go outside, we are still meeting our goals and contributing to this life-saving mission. I just think about if Miriam Ward, if that was all of the good that I've gotten to see God use you to do in those 4 years, that would be huge. But you're involved in so many other things. And I'm saying this for the sake of our friend at home who we haven't met yet, who maybe feels very isolated right now. Here's a wonderful person who makes the world a better place, and her life is made possible because of a blood donation.
Well, you know, it says in the Bible to give thanks for all circumstances.
Yes.
I have to really give thanks, actually, for getting aplastic anemia, because it made me rethink my priorities. And I was serving God before, but not as much as I probably should have been. So I decided, after the second time especially, that the time that I had, I wanted to really give as much to him and his service as I could.
You know, you and I have gotten to talk about the blood drive so many times, and I think that's the first time I've really heard you put it that way, that because of this circumstance, you saw it as an opportunity to refocus, to give more.
Absolutely.
And I've had a similar experience in my life, and I think that globally, hopefully, we're going through that we are finding, with God's help, that positive silver lining, if you will, a way to allow God to make the best of these circumstances and do something good. And I love that you not only had that personal reflection, but you've helped all of us find just really an easy way that you can plug in and you can be a part of something that saves someone's life. I was just talking to Miriam just a minute ago before we hit record here that I said it's like the missional equivalent of like mowing your own lawn, all right? Because so many chores at home or so many things you do in life, you don't get to see a result immediately, and that can be difficult sometimes. But every donation of blood saves a life that gets used. And I got to thinking about it. You know, if they run low, they don't just go and grab someone off the streets and stick them with a needle.
No.
I mean, this is something that requires donation.
It does, and blood doesn't last forever. So sometimes if it's not used for a particular blood type, then it gets tossed. So they have to continually replenish their supply. And especially at the beginning of this COVID pandemic, there was such a shortage. There's still a shortage. And what I really want to say today is I really want to thank all of the people in our congregation that have been so faithful and in giving. We have, and I would love to mention every one of them, but I'd leave somebody out, and I don't want to do that. So what I've started doing in our e-news is that I not only have been posting pictures for years, but I have started posting all their names. because I want them to get recognition for what they're doing. Some of them have given gallons of blood during their lives. And just think of all the lives that they've saved because of that.
Wow. So what was our goal last time? Because we recently had a blood drive.
Well, because of COVID and social distancing requirements, we've had to lower the number that we normally would ask if we were in the Family Life Center. So our goal has been 12 both times that we've had it. And both times, because of those faithful, brave people, we've met our goal.
That's amazing.
It is.
That's amazing.
And I'm so thankful.
And thank you for leading us and being responsible. We're very safe. Follow all the procedures plus some.
Absolutely.
And thank you for leading us in doing that. Yeah. Well, what else would you like to say? Because we've got new friends out there that we haven't met. We've got a lot of old friends who are going to be so excited to get to see your face today. What's something you just like to say to your church and to our growing church?
Well, I guess don't let COVID get you down too much. I know personally I've had good days and bad days with it, but I'm trying to look more at the positive side of it. I actually have had some positive things happen. I've had more time to reflect, more time to rest, more time for Bible study, more time to read. And I've read some incredible books this summer.
You want to recommend one?
Oh, yeah. I love historical fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I've read Sarah's Key and The Tattooist of Auschwitz. Both of those books are about the Holocaust. I've also read The Yankee Widow, and that's about the Civil War, obviously. So reading those, I was talking to my sister, and I said, you really should read these books. And she said, I don't want to be depressed. I said, I don't look at it that way. When I'm reading them, I'm thinking about people have gone through a whole lot worse times than I personally am going through. So it's kind of been a positive thing for me. And I'm reading a book right now that's a nonfiction that I would highly recommend. And it's The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. It's about a black lady in the 1950s who had cervical cancer, and they did a biopsy of her. And this researcher had been looking for years for a way to get cells to live, and they never could do it. And so they did a biopsy of her cervical cancer, and her cells lived. And not only did they live, but they reproduced. And because of her, they did amazing things with the polio vaccine. They've been able to help people through chemotherapy. And so when I was reading about this yesterday, and I was reading all about the polio part, I thought, I wonder if they're still using the HeLa cells, that's what they're called, for the first two letters of her name, Henrietta and Lacks. I wonder if they're still using those today. So I Googled, are they using the HeLa cells with coronavirus? And they are.
Wow.
It's an amazing story.
What's the name of that book again?
The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks.
The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. All right, I'm going to check that one out.
It's wonderful.
Got to read more about that. Well, what a good way to read about really good news in difficult times, because that's what we're talking about here today. That's what we're living through. Well, that's awesome. Well, I invited you here to talk about the blood drive, and we got this incredible book review as well. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Well, we're running out of time, but what is if somebody missed the blood drive, but they still want to participate, how do they still?
Our next one is on Sunday, October the 4th, and we'll be advertising in e-news, and you can sign up there, or you can contact me. That my email address is listed with it, or the church. And we'll be glad, or you can even go to Carter. They'll welcome you. So please donate.
It's Carter Blood Center. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Okay, Carter Blood Center.
Carter Blood Care. I think.
Carter Blood Care. Sorry, I knew I had a letter right.
Yeah.
But there we go. Carter Blood Care, or you can go on our website. We'll have a sign up there October 4th on a Sunday.
Correct.
And it'll be here at our church.
In the foyer.
So
unless things change again.
We put out a sign, so if you've never been here before, it's the big building. Look for a sign. You can't miss it. Real easy. Yeah.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much. But again, if that date doesn't work for you, you can contact Carter Blood Care, and you can go and donate, and you can use our name, and that'll add to help us kind of meeting our quota and just be a part of something that we can celebrate. We'd love to hear about it. You can contact Miriam if you'd like to talk more. You can email me, and I can forward a message to Miriam if you would like, if that's easier. But we always are grateful to hear from you, and it's so good to hear from someone who is not only organizing it, but you're here today because of a blood drive somewhere.
Absolutely.
And I know nobody likes needles. We always say that, right? Let's just get it out in front. Nobody likes needles, and if you do, contact us, and we'll sign you up for some counseling. But it's a small inconvenience that literally saves lives. So, Miriam, thank you. I thank God for you. So glad to be your friend.
This church, and for making the opportunity for this to happen, because it takes a lot of people.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you for coming and talking with us.
For current information about the effects of COVID-19 precautions at First Grapevine Church, visit firstgrapevine.org/COVID-19 updates.